This conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's my 2 cents. Is it burdensome? Yeah, I agree with the attorney. But we're not trying to make this easy. And the truth of the matter is, it's part of the attorney's advice to the town. There's a reason we have 2 vape shops in the town right now. So I gotta weigh which words I'm gonna choose to value. And I think on this particular item, if someone has a corporation and the majority shareholder doesn't want to sign and the minority shareholder wants to sign and they're doing something that is potentially illicit activity, and the minority shareholder gets caught because he's in the store and something goes wrong, and then there's a hidden majority shareholder that no one has record of here in town, like it makes sense to just know who these folks are that own the business. Yes, if they have a loan out and the bank has got, collateralizing something, renting a shop, they're not collateralizing a rented building, but if they're collateralizing inventory, yeah, the bank would need to sign off on that. But I don't think there are many banks that are collateralizing Delta 9 in lieu of that. Inventory thing. I understand what you're saying, Whaley, but for the purposes of this specific business carve out, to me, it's not a big deal.
It's not Chair. I agree with Melody and Alex.
All right. Any other comments? My last item will be 17458, which states all matters of enforcement, interpretation, and application of this division, including decisions on conditional use permits, zoning permits, and certificates of zoning compliance, shall be made initially by the code enforcement official as an administrative matter. So zoning laws in general provide limited interpretation to these individuals. They should be following written law. So the interpretation is very both there. So I think 17008 specifies pretty much around interpretation of Latin language of the canon of construction.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
based on that, what are you proposing in terms of a language change?
Interpretation, I don't know what that would do, but including that's not ambiguous, open to interpretation.
Pretty clear the way it is. Words don't make it clearer.
Yes, sir.
Is your concern that historically the town's interpretation of ordinances has been far from the words of the ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Benefit of any interpretation to fall back on the town rather than the business owner. Interpretation being very wonky inside of.
Can't fix that.
Right, yeah, I think I separate the two. Does that make any sense?
Yes, absolutely. I just read this.
No, just your mind.
I read this all last night. I was going through each sentences, and as I was reading it, I was thinking about what it meant. So, as somebody else would read. So, all right. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just note that this language mirrors what is in the sexually oriented business language. I think It is verbatim.
Yes, I do think it is mirrored, but I understand, I mean, we're in a rush and we're trying to get this passed and, we wanna make it easy and everything, but at the end of the day, my duty is to make sure we're passing a great ordinance that is written law, easy to navigate, and, like I said, when I read these elements inside the ordinance are questionable to me, so,
Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am.
I just don't think we can legislate judgment any more than we can legislate common sense. Or enforcement.
All right, is there any other topic, that was the end of mine, so.
Mr. Chair. Yeah. That last one on 17459B on the existing businesses. We have a conflict. When the attorney was here, he shares that he was negative on the thought of us putting a restrictive covenant saying you're grandfathered in because you're here, regardless of circumstance, you're grandfathered in. But if you sell your business, change your business type, whatever, it's done. The grandfather vanishes. And he said, boy, that's pretty tough for a business owner. But in his email, he said, sure, write an ordinance, you could just shut them down. So it's a little this. So I think we should get very comfortable with the fact that any attorney, this is not personal, any attorney's opinion on anything changes. And an attorney's opinion, right, is just that, it's an opinion, right? The two opinions fighting the same thing, that's why courts exist. That's why there's so many attorneys, because they just, it was slicker in the moment. But on this one issue, he's articulated well and semi-strongly two opposite sides of the same point. So I think we should take any opinion he has on what we do with existing businesses and keep that in mind. So that's the one item. We didn't go around the horn and say, hey, who's generally in agreement or not? What do we do with the existing ones? So I think we should have that quick discussion so that if we go away and make another draft without a vote, there's a general understanding of where we're falling. I shared my piece, which was I don't like it, but I like less telling any business owner, we let you in, we told you how to sneak in, and now we're going to say no. Like that just is ugly.
So you're stating, we're recommending we grandfather those.
Yeah, make them exempt until their business is exempt, but they can't change ownership, and they can continue to renew their business license with them as you. But they can't sell their business. Someone else can't fly in there. If it's them owning the business, running the business as it is today, without material changes to the business type, it can continue. Still need to clean up the mess of them being called a convenience store. So we've got to think through that, but this, as written now, this just shuts them down.
I honestly don't think that's the commission's role to, I mean, the town should get those into compliance. I don't think it should be anything we do in an ordinance.
Well, we've been asking for a year. Sorry, don't mean to be crass, but.
Okay. Any comments or anything with that? So I think the intent or what we'd like to see is we're grandfathering those individuals in until they change ownership or other elements. Is that?
And one more thing, Angie, I didn't really expect it for tonight, but if I sent you an email yesterday, if you get a chance to take a look, or if it needs to go through Dusty, that's fine too, but a little background on the existing businesses, the application, the actual license that was issued.
I gave that to Nicole. Business license.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I wasn't expecting to. I haven't seen anything back. I just, as we think through that component of this, that will be helpful. So thank you for forwarding that on.
All right. So is everyone okay? I mean, we're looking to grandfather the existing non-conforming vape shops that has been allowed to open as convenience stores.
until the next, or till the change of use or ownership. Everyone.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question about how you would specify a material change in the business. That's a difficult thing to describe. I certainly get a change in ownership. That's hopefully something that could be nailed down. But a material change in the business, how do we specify that? How do we?
I don't know how we do it today, but it is part of our ordinances that if you change a business type, you need to redo your business license. I don't know how it's defined. That's a tough one.
Yeah,
And I don't know how, right, the only other odd business out would be if it went from a vape shop to essentially running a business. Otherwise, it falls into the normal category. And none of this is, mutually exclusive of complying with all of the existing ordinances, because I don't think any of the vape shops we've got now comply with any of the signage ordinance we've got between stuff that's on the windows and everything else. So they need to get that in line, but the business entity itself continues.
The one possible thing, state hasn't decided to legalize medical marijuana. But one change a shop like that I could see would want to move to is to move to be a dispensary, which is related. So that, I don't know how that would fit in, but that would be a significant change in my mind of the business focus, even though it's all on cannabis anyway.
Mr. Chair.
It's something we might want to think about, even though it's not legal at this point, but at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if it is. So,
Way back when Police Chief Hoffman came to us with concerns looming in the future, one of his main concerns, if I recall correctly, was that some of these guys are positioning themselves now so that they can blossom as a dispensary if it's legalized. And he didn't want that to happen, which is why we started working on putting some restrictions on. We don't, but I think there's also some stuff on the laws changed, what's floating around the Capitol is changes, I think weekly, but there's something about having only so many anyway.
Having so many.
Dispensaries within a given area, but I haven't read the latest legislation. Chief Hoffman was quite concerned about not having these businesses have their real estate in place, so that the minute that somebody said go, boom, cannabis city.
Do you think you could come up with something, Carolyn? I know you said it would be challenging, but.
I can try. Challenging is something I like.
I appreciate that. Okay, well, I think that was handled the existing non-conforming. Any other comments or anything to state so we can get a final draft and move this forward?
Mr. Chairman, in that same section, but in A, the language reads annual revenue, and I had raised a question about whether it should be annual revenue or gross receipts. As I understand the information we got back from Nicole, she's recommending gross receipts. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. When I thought to talk to Nicole, she mentioned that's pretty much the only way they track any type of gross sales or anything is gross receipts. And that is mirrored with what they do in their tax reporting on the state.
So I think we should change the language there.
$17,459 exemptions, and that would be letter A if you're looking for.
I understand that what we're talking about right now is that we would still have the exemptions language, It's just that we are not forcing existing businesses located in town to either become exempt or to comply with the location, et cetera, requirements. We are allowing I think there are 4 existing shops to continue as is until they have a change in ownership or a material change in the business, however we sort that out.
And then I would assume if they meet the compliance in this chapter that may pass, they would still be able to reopen. So, but I don't know if you have to include that. But if they're in an area or building currently that is in compliance with 1,500 feet, they would be able to utilize it once they're in compliance with this, even if it's existing. So.
I don't think there are any of them that.
Only 3.
I thought there were 4, but anyway,
The 4th of them shut down.
okay. But I don't think any of those could satisfy the 1,000 foot requirement.
That's my understanding. Yeah, we want to grandfather the existing ones.
Or anything else you'd like to clear up, Carolyn?
I think I've got it.
All right. Any other comments or anything on vape shops? Righty, I can tell you that, what happened was, from our last meeting, Carolyn utilized an offer to utilize our notes from our previous meetings and also the understanding of the commission's, comments and the recommendations. And she was able to modify this to, the most current updated information. Is there anybody opposed to allowing her to modify this for a final draft?
No, thank you. Thank God.
Yeah, great. Same.
All right, I think you have all the support, Carolyn, so I appreciate you doing that as well.
Okay, thank you all. I will.
If you need anything, just please reach out. We'll try to get you an answer.
Okay, so I do need something, and that is a deadline. I am one of those lawyers, and I work on deadlines. So we need a deadline so that I know, Mr. Chairman, you said that the moratorium expires in July. Well, the that expiration is for, as I understand it, an enactment of this ordinance, so it has to jump through all the town council hoops. And
What I would suggest is, if appropriate, I would like to have a workshop meeting, which is typically the 3rd Thursday, unless the Board of Zoning Appeals has something to do. I'm not sure, I haven't heard that is the case, but depending on Angie's availability as well, I would say, if possible for you, by that 3rd Thursday.
oh, for sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a request if possible. And God bless you for working on this. It's wonderful. Changes you might make, is there a way you can either highlight or somehow, so that we know what you've changed and what you haven't changed? That gets a little confusing because, is that a possibility?
Scott, she's going to provide this to us, and all her changes will be notated in this highlighted
I
portion.
didn't get it.
It should be in
Further
the
on.
packet.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, from that document.
Yeah.
So I provided
Aha,
the final version and then her editable version.
Thank
So
you. Okay,
all the edits are right here notated.
excellent.
So,
I was looking back here.
so what my plan would be to the extent we didn't address something, to accept that change and then just focus on changes that would relate to what we've discussed this evening.
Yes.
That work?
That's
I
excellent.
think we're in a good place to do that.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. All right. Any other comments? And we'll move on. All right, I think we'll move on. The next item is B, Planning Commission bylaws. So of course, we have already passed the bylaws, this year earlier in the meeting. I think there was a, comment or something about grammatical errors and stuff inside that. And Commissioner, Carolyn wanted to bring that back. She has modified and fixed some grammatical errors that was provided a 7-day notice of her bylaws requirements. So I'll get a motion to approve, the bylaws in a second, and we'll be able to discuss it. Make a motion to approve the planning commission bylaws as amended.
Second.
Have a motion and second, so any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
under section 3, agenda items.
Okay.
It says 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 again. See what I'm talking about?
Yeah, can I find it?
It's just a.
Okay.
And, on section B, public comments. It says public comments, agenda, business items. Should it not just be agenda items?
Problem with leaving the agenda, I like for to receive feedback on all agenda items. I think she may capture that from our.
I think, yeah, probably.
Mr. Chairman, it was, that way, and I think it mirrors what, is item number 6, which will come second in section 3.
She's allowing public comments to. Any other folks that oppose changing to business items only, or would you prefer to see it agenda items?
To be all agenda items.
So we'll remove that business back, unless you have any more context, Carolyn, that could change your mind.
No, so you're just wanting to have business fall out in both locations, in section 3 and in 8B.
Where are you seeing business items in the other section? Where's that at?
Okay, so I'm gonna point.
Oh, I see number.
So if you go back up to the section we were just talking about, section 3, where Melody pointed out the numbering issue. Number 6 there is agenda business items. So those are just mirroring one another.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
it just means that they would not be allowed to comment on any discussion items. Correct? I think that they should be able to comment on any agenda item.
Correct. I agree with you. So I think, unless, a majority can say otherwise, I think we're leaning to remove the business and leave it public comments, on agenda items. Anyone oppose that? All right, I think we're good on that. So we'll make that amendment adjustment. Any other? Still for yours? Yes, ma'am.
Last page, down at the bottom, section 7, adoption and amendment, we've got a couple of dates that need to be updated. It's not gonna be approved on April 1.
Okay.
It's too late for that. And I also think, all right, the secretary signs it, but I think we should only list the names of the 7 voting members. The other 2 are not signing up to, they're not voting on these bylaws, so why should they be sort of held responsible? I think they should be on the list.
Okay.
Just as the 7 voting members.
So I'll take the dates, of course, I believe everyone wanted the approval of, so we'll go ahead and strike that. And is anyone opposed in removing the other additional names? All right, hearing no opposition, we will remove those as well. I think also, Mary Ellen, you said the last page, but I think the first page, unless we updated that too, needs strike. So we're going to strike the top and then strike the last, and then question also. I mean, should the chairman sign this, or is everybody okay with the secretary? I have no problem with the secretary signing, but I just didn't. I questioned that when I was.
Where are you?
She's just attesting to the vote, I would say.
Okay. Right here. All right, any other changes? All right, I think that captures them all. I don't think that's anything significant. I think we could probably pass these with the amendments stated. We already have a motion to approve as stated, but we may need an amended or motion to approve with the amendments of all that we discussed tonight and agree upon. I didn't motion to leave. So I'll amend the motion to update the dates, remove business from agenda items, update the 2 4s with 4 and 5, and then adjust that in the section 3 agenda items. And then we will move the other 2 names that is not. We talked about. And I'll get a second for that.
Second.
All right, a motion and second for those amendments. Any discussion on it? All right, everyone agree and say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. This is the final version. Carolyn, I would assume you're going to do that final version. Would you,
I can do that.
would you like that third Thursday
Sure,
deadline as well? All right,
Sure.
thank you. All righty. We're moving on to discussion items. It is a full agenda today, so what I would say, if you want to talk about it and we're done talking about it, we can move on. I know they are important tonight to probably the tree preservation ordinance. I would like some discussion started on capital investment. If we can hold the workshop to the design overlay, that's fine. If you guys want to do that, I know I do have some discussion elements on it, but there is a few more priority items on this sheet. So, A would be Chapter 17 ordinance language, Article 9 design overlay, review a certain section of Chapter 17 zoning, Article 9 design overlay of the Code of Ordinance of Town of Surfside Beach, South Carolina, and review recommendations from the Business Committee, which is Chapter 17, Section 17,400 to 17,440. All right, any comments? Workshops, we talked about it. We met with the business committee. They proposed some stuff. So what I would like to start doing is creating just a overall notes of items that we discussed, what the business committee recommends. That way we'll have an overarching chart or a full statement of what we've discussed, and that will be helpful to creating I can tell you that we've already had meetings, multiple notes got recaps, got missing. So here we are talking about some of the stuff too, but I know that we talked about 50% instead of the 20% requirement on renovations. I think we talked about a little bit of the issues of permits. I think a question come up around, well, is it referring to a business or if it's referring to the owner changing? So I think we still got to get those answered. And then also we talked a little bit about the shopping plazas. I think the business committee was wanting to recommend I guess, the disconnection of power as a trigger for town hall. I think we went back and forth from that. Maybe a loophole, turning the power on one day or 2 day and that changing the clock. I think they recommended some other items as far as penalties or fines, I believe, are a route to take course to the design overlay. There's definitely a lot of things in this design overlay. I know that I reviewed the overlay last night, and as I was going through it, I was just basically looking at the Kangaroo Station and going through the overlay too. And there's a lot of things that are required for a business. I absolutely agree that it may be burdensome on local business and stuff like that, but also I think it's our duty to make sure it's a happy medium. And so we still have to have development. We still have to have investment in our structures. We don't want to get to a place in 20 years where none of our businesses are structured or attractive and all the businesses going elsewhere. So we definitely got to invest in that, but we got to do it in a way that is happy medium. We do attract a lot of local folks that may not have huge sums of money to invest in those types of businesses. But I think it's always important to be able to invest in something. All right. Any other comments or?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I have to say I came away from our last discussion as thinking that the whole idea of how the overlay works is in a state of confusion. And if we're confused and the PBZ is confused, it seems like we need to really take a hard look at how it all works. I personally thought the business committee chair's response to some questions I posed about that you could make this requirement something that was required of the owner of the property and give them a deadline. He had suggested a year. I think that's way too short a time period. I know there was question as to whether or not that was the wrong way to go and whether or not town council had previously rejected a similar idea. But I just came away with the idea that nobody knows how this works. And if nobody knows how it works, it needs a hard examination. Anyway, I'll stop there.
So I know we're talking about time limits, and I'm all for that, but as the design ordinance is currently written at 17.905, issuance of permits and certificate of occupancy, it states that no certificate of occupancy will be issued until the requirements of this article have been met. And then it also says no zoning or building permit will be issued unless these requirements have been addressed to the satisfaction of the development director, which I would assume the satisfaction of the development director would state all of this is complied to. So I don't really understand it either, because how do you allow somebody to make renovations or comply to this chapter and not offer them a building permit? So I didn't understand that.
Mr. Chairman, there was also confusion as to whether it was the tenant or the building owner, who was the responsible entity to comply with the overlay requirements. And I just think we need to make sure we're being very clear about that.
Yes, ma'am. Very valid point. Any other conversation about design overlay?
Yeah, I've got one. But I appreciate the previous comment. I'm gonna be a little bit more terse. I think our body and the town, the administration, planning, and zoning need to have come to Jesus meeting about at least design overlay. You look out that back door, you'll see a sign. I'm not gonna divulge emails and personal information, but there's this new sign on top of the building that any sign changes within the design overlay district, any sign changes need to follow design overlay. When the town was questioned, when the administrator was questioned, the response was, oh, they didn't adjust the frame. Like, so but from my seat, it felt like similar to the vape shops, similar to the shopping centers that were vacant for a while that we allowed new businesses. People are just making stuff up on the fly. For lack of a better, rather than just saying, oops, we didn't follow it there, or we got to get better with this, a response was made up. Like, I find that unacceptable as a resident. And, I don't know if the rules are right or wrong, but I'm pretty sure if I go in to apply for certain permits, I've got to follow certain rules. And just seems like specific around design overlay, that response was made up. There's nowhere in here is about, we didn't change, are you changing the frame of the sign? It's not any change to the sign at all. You've got to bring it up to the standard. Like, it feels really yucky to have a response from the town that doesn't exist anywhere in any of these ordinances. And I'd love to let's just talk it out, because it's very frustrating. And to me, it feels an awful lot like in the peer committee, which, Dusty, I know you know, like, battled for years around power under the pier, kiosks staying on there is a litany of things that we were scolded. We were dismantled at one point. A couple of times we were called names. We had a letter given to us. And in the end, a lot of these things proved, not that we're geniuses, proved out that we were right. You can't have power under the pier. You do X, Y, and Z. So, like, when we push on things, it's a negative response from the town or council. If we don't push on things, then we're not doing our fiduciary responsibility. At some point, someone's got to read the design overlay and go, maybe if it's that clear that if there's any change to a sign, it needs to follow the design overlay. I don't really care about that particular sign. What I do care about is the next 10 that point to that sign and say, oh, they did it, why can't I? And what legs do we have to stand on? Or, well, you allowed the sign to go through, so how come I can't open up this type of business if you're gonna allow that to slip? Like, we just lose all credibility. And it's just very frustrating. So I'm done with anything about design overlay, but it seems like every month we get together and there's more than a couple of examples that pop up of, it's like, how did that even happen? Like, it's not even ambiguous. It is, black and white stuff. So, something to consider as a chair. How do we communicate without being the bad guys? It's just ongoing, and in many circumstances actually feels like going in the wrong direction with alignment of clear written words and clear actions.
Thank you, sir. I just respond to that. I mean, I think partnership with PB&Z, we have had new individuals and associates and staff. I think the communication, I think conversation here, reviewing it with those guys so they can interpret it how the commission is leaning, I think will be very beneficial to those guys. I agree that a lot of this, and it's very clear in most of this ordinance in general. So I don't really see where the differences are coming from either, but I just think if that's the case and staff is not reviewing it like we're intending or the ordinance is intended, I mean, we're the only body that can recommend or change the amendment to make it more clear or force. So I fully understand your frustration, Alex, but at the same time, if nobody's talking about it, or if we're not reviewing it, or not changing it to a way folks can be able to look at it very easily and know exactly what's expected, I think that be our duty.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I think some of the ones I've heard about in recent times, it's not about not understanding it. When it says in two places, thou shalt not do X, Y, or Z, it can't be any clearer than that. So I just want to endorse everything Alex said.
I will say we did ask for, I think we, as a commission, we asked maybe possibly looking at the last three new businesses with the appraisals, county appraisals, to see what kind of investment they really had to make, determine that percentage rate. Just looking about the things that we have talked about, absolutely. But I do have an example. So when I was reviewing the orders last night, I was kind of thinking of what this kangaroo building out here would be required to do with this current design overlay. So just to put it in perspective, that particular property to comply or move forward with opening that establishment, 20% of the lot size has to have landscaping on it. And I believe that specifies it doesn't include gravel or pavement or open grass. I believe in that. So I think there's a requirement of some type of mature trees or landscaping bushes. No more than 3 different colors are approved. So your trim, your main color, or a different area on the building, no more than 3 different colors. And there's also a paint color chart that is approved for C1. Windows, doors need to be finished in white or earth tone colors. The trim should be white. The dumpsters in the back should be in the rear of the lot, behind the building, and dumpsters require solid fence on 3 sides around that. No highly tinted windows will be permitted, so they would probably have to remove that tint. And then anything over 9 square foot of a window would require muttons or mulins. So they would have to put those fancy little things in the windows. And then also 17902 states everything in the design overlay district shall also meet all underlying zoning district requirements in chapter 17. And then 17904 allows only gable roofs, hip roofs, mansard roofs, or parapet roofs. And I don't think the existing building would comply to that. So I think the easiest route with that would be a parapet on the sides of things. So to be compliant with that, I believe that is what would be required. Or creating another style roof. The parking lot lighting must not extend 21 foot and should have a light source that is shielded by a lens and only be white light. And 17908 states each building must have a primary entrance facing front of street. So being that has an address of business 17, the front door should be facing on the street. And then 17908 says mechanical equipment on the roof and any visible mechanical equipment from the street shall be shielded. So if you think about that, that's quite a bit. It also would be require parking lot buffers and interior landscape buffers, which the interior landscaping buffer states that the building itself should be surrounded by landscaping. So of course that probably require pulling out pavement or asphalt. And then also out, I don't know the measurements, I ain't measured them, but anytime you have more than like 12 parking spaces or something, you have to create an island or a parking lot buffer, which includes landscaping as well. So just thinking about all that, that's what's required in this ordinance just for the kangaroo building. So
just one, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just
sir.
one component there, aside from their doors, every panel of glass, which that building is large, heavily glassed, would need to be replaced.
or install mulins and buttons on the windows. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I've been on this commission off and on since about 2010. For the entire time, the town has talked about cleaning up 17 and making it beautiful and creating the design overlay and blah, 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 blah. And we chicken out every doggone time. This particular property, and I'm not saying we should zero in on the particular property, the Circle K, but it is in a primary spot right in the center of this town. It does not, be a lady about this, just say it doesn't need to be an eyesore. But it's worse than an eyesore. We're either gonna have a design overlay ordinance, we're gonna clean up 17, or we are not. All we've done is talk for years and years and years.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments?
Chair, my understanding right, that there is a pending business application for that business again?
Believe so.
And do you know that?
I'm sorry?
Do you happen to know if the old gas station here on the corner right there?
They submitted another one, yeah, and,
pending business application?
landscaping plans, things, but it hadn't been approved yet.
So in addition to the landscaping plans, all the glass is gonna be considered.
Right, I sent them another email today telling them,
It's 11-page sign over, like there's a lot there, but
Yes, I've given them that. And I even sent him Dusty's email that he sent me, helping me with everything that's on there, and told him that it would have to meet that before we could go any further.
So just some comments from me on the order, and I agree with your sentiments around, if we need an overlay or we don't need, but when I think about it, you talk about that primary area there, it takes 10 to 20 years for us to be able to even be in a position where we can get that redeveloped or updated. So therefore, making mistakes or pushing that through or allowing something else, that means that structure in 20 more years, which is probably already 20 years old, is still going to be there. It's probably still going to be underdeveloped. Minimum investment in that. So that is the whole reason of zoning laws. That's the whole reason that the roof sign over there is the same general area. We, first of all, we're in a hurricane-prone area. We don't want structures above roof lines. It can fall over, it can blow over, hit other structures or other businesses, tear them up. And I think a lot of our ordinances are based on creating preventive measures for that type of stuff. So it's just like spending money and installing utilities underground. I mean, that's the whole purpose of progressing and developing the town. So I think it's very important that if we're going to have an overlay, we definitely need to stick to it, because in 20 more years, we could continue to look at that. When I look at that property there, it is a main property of town. I think possibility of a developer could come in. I'm not saying it could happen, and I'm not saying I'm doing it. But if that was a good potential area, I mean, it could add 3 or 4 more businesses to town just in that little section and utilize the parking behind it in the same concept of downtown C2. So I think we need to keep that stuff kind of in mind. Yeah, we attract local businesses, but also the survivability of those businesses sometimes have a huge turnover. So I think it's important to utilize the overlay as best as possible. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman, what I hear everybody saying is that we need to impose requirements, not chicken out. And it seemed to me that what Tom Brandish was proposing, that we require the owners to give them a set amount of time. 1 year, way too short. But give them a set amount of time and say, bring your property up to the design overlay standards. Kind of makes sense. And I mean, he was very frank. He said, you know, if a business doesn't want to do this and they want to, not the business, but if the property owner doesn't want to do this, then they can sell the property. And that might be a good thing for the town, to have some properties change hands. So I think from where I sit at the moment, trying to impose these requirements on businesses, not businesses, on property owners is the way to go. And that is what is likely to see some movement in terms of cleaning up 17.
Thank you, Matt.
Any other comments or anything on chapter 17? Article 9. All right, I think we'll move on. I will state that that would probably be our workshop item. If we do continue to have one on the third Thursday of this month, I would ask the commission, if possible, to really review this, kind of notate what you guys are looking at, what your opinion on it is. That way we could start at least certain sections drafted in a way, or at least having a document that we know the statements and the comments in one general area, so that if we do get a new director, we can move forward right from that point on instead of working back on it as well. So I think if everybody captures the notes and stuff on it, we could then set down the one document, I think we'll move a lot faster. You know? And if we have questions and stuff that need answered by staff, then please have those as well. I'll be sure to push those where they need to go. All right, we'll move on to B, tree preservation ordinance. That would be review the response from town council and discuss how PC will move forward related to the stormwater committee tree proposal. And the first item I would like to do, or I'm not even going to make a motion, but when we do bring the minutes forward for the next meeting, Angie, I would like to propose that town council's response be a part of those minutes, please.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to let Angie know that I have a document that will do that already that I can send to you. It has our request and council's response on the
Please,
same piece of paper.
thank you.
Sure.
So basically, this agenda item was put on here. We didn't really want to review the ordinance agenda. There's a lot of information on there. We've already discussed it a lot. I think tonight's agenda item is basically, we discussed, I think a few commissioners attended the stormwater committees. We requested guidance from town council, which town council come back, stated that it was the commission's purview for any tree or landscaping ordinance within the jurisdiction of the town of Surfside Beach. One thing I will say, I don't want to put the stormwater committee out. They did a lot of work in this. I definitely want to partner with them. I'd like to understand where they come from. There's a lot of elements with the species and the fees and fines. And also council would like this as fast as possible. So I'm not going to say we're not going to rush to get it done, but also we do know the urgency in getting that in front of town council. So I think tonight we just kind of need to know the next route of what the council's looking to do to move forward. I think they gave us 3 options. Of course, the commission can do as they please, but I think we could partner with the stormwater committee and review that together and get their guidance, and then the planning commission can offer their own recommendation. I think we can offer to as written if we wanted to. Or if we want to take some time and do a workshop or schedule additional workshop or make sure this is on the agenda of the next meeting, I think we can get started on this as well. All right, any comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think we should start in the middle. And by that, I mean, first, we need to familiarize ourselves with the existing tree ordinance. So we know what we've already got. If we plunge into what is recommended, we don't know whether it even conflicts. And I would like to request that our secretary print us out one-sided copies of the current tree ordinance so that we have something to compare with. So if I don't know where I am, I can't make a plan to go anywhere else. We need to start by knowing what's in the current tree ordinance, and then I think we need to see what in the proposed ordinance from stormwater committee would add value to the current ordinance, and I'm sure there are some things. And then we come up with a melded version of sort, but if we plunge into the middle, we're gonna be trying to fix things that aren't even broken right now. So a copy of the tree ordinance would sure help.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I, in fact, downloaded that document this past weekend and looked at the old ordinance, which is chapter 17-700 block, which it was enacted in August of 2017, and some changes were made in 2021. I went through this thing looking at what most people are complaining about are clear cutting lots. And the ordinance specifically prohibits that. There's clear limits of what can be cut. Permits are required. Penalties, just like in the new document. Mitigation and all that kind of stuff. It seems to me that there aren't any obvious loopholes, that some people have said there's loopholes in this document that allowed people to clear cut their lots. I don't see them. In my opinion, the reason these lots are being clear cut is because we have a long-term lack of experience planning and zoning staff at that time. My preference would be to keep the thing in chapter 17, work with the stormwater committee and us to blend their work, which I appreciate because it was extensive, into the existing ordinance and come out with something that's much better that satisfies the needs of the stormwater committee and the residents. I think, I have that document. I'll forward it. I downloaded it yesterday. I can forward it to Angie. Okay.
I
That's all.
just don't want to print that many pages.
Actually, that document's only 18 pages.
The current ordinance.
The current ordinance is 18 pages. I remember when it was written, it was 37 pages, but when it went through council in August of 2017, they did some surgery.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McKee. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I think that we should incorporate into whatever plan we have a session where we sit down with the Stormwater Committee and hear further from them, or everyone hear from them. I know some of us heard from them. Why it is they thought they needed to make changes. The only change that I really understood or came away from the meeting with them was that for visibility purposes, they wanted to move it out of 17 and into 18. I'm not saying that that might not be a good idea, or not offering an opinion as to whether that's a good idea or not, but I would like to hear from them and have the opportunity to ask them questions as to why they thought these changes needed to be made. I do understand the idea of providing information to the citizens of the town as to the value of trees and why certain trees have more value than other trees, but I'm not sure that it belongs in an ordinance as opposed to maybe a brochure or something like that that is provided to all residents so that they understand why trees are a value to the town. Anyway, I would suggest that we have a session with the Stormwater Committee, which is not a session that they are presenting to us, although it could involve some presentation, but is mostly a session for us to be able to ask questions. Well, why this, why whatever? I know they said at the meeting that I went to that part of their reason for change was having to do with the individuals who are doing the enforcement having trouble with understanding exactly how the ordinance works. But when we asked what, specifically were the troubles, we didn't get, I didn't feel like we got a satisfactory answer to be able to then know how you move forward on things. So anyway, a session I think would be very valuable. And I would say that I do think they have put a lot of thought into tree protection and that we should use their efforts as much as we can or should in doing an ordinance or in suggesting that a pamphlet, brochure, whatever be circulated to town residents.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I completely support what Carolyn said. I think, at that meeting, or at least at some meeting, it might also be important to have the current code enforcer there to tell us what problems the one that is sitting in the seat now is seeing it with the ordinance, and what, what problems he sees, because I agree with Carolyn, we did ask that question, and it was, I don't think that they were trying to evade the question, I think that it just had been, they had a lot of information they spent 3 years getting. So, it's probably not easy to answer in detail every question that we had, but I also recall asking about why what were the problems? They kept saying that there were holes in the ordinance that needed to be plugged up. And we just weren't clear on what those holes were. So I think if we can have them with us to help, answer some of our questions, but also maybe have the code enforcer there.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I agree and support this idea. However, life is challenging. Maybe right now for me specifically, it's like out of control. And as much as I would love to have a meeting for every discussion and every, ordinance that we're trying to work on, just an idea if there's a way to streamline it and out of respect for the Stormwater Committee, they maybe share in a document or bullet points what issues they had with our ordinance. And if they could do that line by line, we can then have a chance to digest that. And then, I don't know about a special meeting, but maybe, during one of our meetings, have a special time to, work on that. And, I do believe that they did work really hard on this ordinance. I also know that we all have a different worldview, and how I've changed my worldview a little bit. We're in a small town, 2 square miles, and it's precious land, and we are Tree City, USA, and we're near the ocean, so we want to preserve this land, and we want to keep it beautiful. We also want to encourage business to do what they need to do and somehow find a win-win in this situation. But having another special meeting, I'm not sure I have it in me right now. Maybe it's an emotional response for what's happening in my life. But if there's a way to streamline it so that we can be a little more efficient, and I know our job is to get into the deep and dirty details of everything, but I think it's a little challenging to cross every T and dot every I, and I'm willing to try to participate in the meetings. I know that I'm not sure that it's necessarily efficient way of doing things. So if we can make it a little more efficient, I think I support that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm all for efficiency. And I think we have so much on our plate in terms of topics, ordinances, what have you, to deal with. I would suggest that we form some subcommittees that deal with some of these things. And for example, on trees, a subcommittee on trees that meets with the stormwater committee folks, and the code enforcement officer. I think that's a valuable thing too. And then the committee comes back to the full commission with a recommendation. And not just with trees, with other things, the design overlay, etc.
I think, we may just have that on an agenda item, possibly next meeting, that way we'll be able to give, the feedback on that specific subcommittee. I'm not sure if everybody's in favor of that, but, I'd like to stay on this topic of tree preservation, and then we'll talk about that, at the next meeting if we can. Any other comments or anything around tree preservation ordinance or the next work the planning commission got? I think we got some pretty good feedback so far.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure that we do put in the record in the minutes of this meeting that we acknowledge and appreciate the work that Stormwater Committee did. They put, they went at it with the right intent. And, there was just some disagreement in how the end result is handled, but they did a really thorough, really good job. And we need to recognize that and appreciate that and utilize the work that they've done, because if not, we will spend another 3 years looking at it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, being none, we will move on to, letter C, capital investment program. Discuss plans to submit a capital investment program to town council. And I think this is just a Kickstarter conversation, get it started. I think we have a few months left in this year to, produce a capital investment program. I don't believe the commission has, fulfilled that responsibility in the past. I'm uncertain, Mary Ellen may be able to, correct me if so, but, it is, one of the duties to, create a capital investment program that is aligned, with our 10-year comprehensive plan, and we're to submit that to town council. I think it's actually supposed to be, submitted when we do the 10-year comp plan as well. That's this. So I'll turn it over to, Alex. He is working on the capital investment program for us.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. If you don't have it already on its way down, everybody's got it. Before I get into the sheet that I sent down, I'm quick to shine a light on when things aren't working right, but this one this is one of the main things we're supposed to do annually, is to provide a capital investment program across the state, different municipalities. That varies. Sometimes it is a very high level dollar figure with a couple of bullet points on suggestions of what to use the money for that align to the comprehensive plan. Other municipalities get very granular with actually a cost per foot of carbon fiber underground or fiber optic underground cable. So there's a large swath. I don't know what the right answer is, but not doing anything is the wrong one. So we actually made some strides, for those of you who are a little bit newer, at the conclusion of the last comprehensive plan. On the paper that you're looking at are 33 items in the comprehensive plan that requires some level of that have some cost associated with it. And to the right of that item is the plan element. I erased our names in each of the columns. I've just renamed them 1 through 7. If we're going to go through this effort again, maybe just to keep it anonymous in the group setting, and then everybody can privately send me their own grading. But the theory was graded 1 to 33, 1 being the most important to you across the 33 items that would require investment. And then we would just do an average to the far right. And these items are sorted based upon, at that time, what was the most important items in descending order. So I'll recirculate, unless somebody's opposed, I'll recirculate this out with maybe a little bit clearer instructions, send it back. And this could be the basis of at least a draft of us saying there's 33 things in our comprehensive plan that cost some level of money. According to the 7 of us, on average, we feel X, Y, and Z are the top 3 things, or the top 10, 15, whatever it is, and then try to quantify over the next 9 years what level of investment we'd like to see the town make in those areas. There are, multiples of expenses higher needs than there are funds available. But at a minimum, at least we can start making recommendations of where some funds could be allocated or the priority of those funds as funds become available. Last year, our recommendation was to allocate 1% of the budget directly towards the comprehensive plan, roughly speaking, at that time was $200,000. It'd be higher than that this year, but we got the same 1%. But if we want to follow that approach, then we'd say, here's some things we think that 1% could be used towards that make sense, that align with the comprehensive plan. Otherwise, in 9 years, whoever's sitting in our seats and still alive will be looking at comprehensive plan and go, oh, this is good stuff, Shane, nothing ever happened. Right? That just seems to be a perpetual item. So that's my plan. Let me summarize. I'll send this back out to you without the numbers. You can shoot it back to me. That'll serve as a backbone of something to talk about in terms of priority, and then we can start assigning some dollars and cents annually, and then we can propose that to council and be ready well in advance of next year's budget. I'll stop, see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Alex. One question, I would say 1 would be the higher priority and the 33 would be the lower, correct?
That's right. As printed, highest priority is on top of the sheet.
Any questions or anything? Any other conversation, alternative methods you'd like, or?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I think that, I appreciate what Alex has done, and I think it's a good place to start. But I also want to mention, when everybody's filling this out, better be thinking about beach renourishment and how the town sets aside money from the past. A wise council years ago set aside, I think, and I'm not, might not be exact on it, I think it was $75,000 from ATAX and $75,000 from HTAX money per year to go into this fund. And if I'm not mistaken, some of that has stopped. Like it will be on top of my list, I can assure you, because really, we won't need much of a police department, we won't need much of a fire department, we won't need much of anything else if we don't have our beach. And I think that it's been a while since we've had a storm that really destroyed the beach. And I know that's not what our discussion is tonight, we're discussing, but if we're gonna fill this out, and this is what we're gonna do, I just wanna have my 2 cents right now to say, to me, that is crucial, it is so important. And we, if we're making a capital investment plan, I can't think of anything that our capital would be better invested in.
So Alex, I don't see anything beach renewal.
Yeah, it's
Six there.
Yes,
Six, I think.
six.
Yeah, number 6.
Okay, gotcha.
It's also true that the feds are not, in the past, they've come in and they've put a lot of money into it. The feds are not going to be willing to do that in the future. So.
Yep, I think in the last meeting, they talked about the federal public assistance being modified where it would not set aside or cover like replacement of pier if it's damaged again. And then also some of the emergency operations that takes place in named storms and other storms. So definitely a good comment, thank you. Any other comments or anything? All right, so I would say, just as Alex sends that to you guys, please don't reply all. Please just reply to him in general. He will be able to get those numbers calculated, and he has the formula over on the side that calculates it by your ranking, and it'll put it in order after we get it all filled in, and then he will produce that document probably at the next meeting if we can get it, or I would say the next regular meeting. I think he'll be able to get something together there. Everyone good with that? All right, we'll move on. I think the next few items will be fairly quickly, they're discussion items, but D is chapter 17 ordinance, section 17394, how to use section 17395 use table. I think as we were viewing, Commissioner Carolyn has mentioned that we may have not removed some language inside of 17394 that stated highlights or something was supposed to be moved, or that section will be removed when it's codified. That looked like it was codified with that section. So minor change, absolutely, but it was called out, so I wanted to add that for Carolyn. You got any comments, Carolyn?
Just that when I was reviewing things, I noticed that like staff comment, and I think it needs to be excluded from the municipal code. So I raised it with Dusty. I don't know, does it require a motion?
This is just a discussion item, so to get to the business item, typically it requires a discussion item first, usually. That's kind of why I wanted to put it on here to talk about it. But I also think you were suggesting that when you first come aboard, or it may not be clear about specified uses not being allowed in that section as well. So you would like to bring some type of language into that top section of the chart, I believe, that kind of specifies that. Clear?
Yes, I didn't realize that was that topic, but yes, I do think at the top of the use table that some of the language from 17394 about how the table is to be used needs to appear at the top of the use table. Primarily, the language that says if a use is not listed, you shouldn't be engaged in the use unless you seek a change in the ordinance. And I know when I started on the commission, there was all the discussion about, well, the vape shops were not allowed and what have you, and I didn't at first see where that was coming from, and it wasn't until I read the entire municipal code and looked at the use tables surrounding material that I appreciated that the vape shops were not allowed. Anyway, I just think that language needs to be added to the top of the table. And I had sent language to Dusty to that effect. I did not provide it to everyone. Again,
That's not.
I don't know how it would get circulated, but it was basically taking the language and saying, unless a use is on this table, you can't do it without seeking a change in this.
Is there any opposition of that, adding that language to that chart, just to be clear and specify that out a little better in that chart?
But it used to be there.
So what I would say, Carolyn, if you want to go ahead and when you amend or create that final draft for vape shop, and then we create the final draft for 17395 use chart, just go ahead and add that additional item in there, and then, because I'm pretty sure that the 17395, which I don't believe we had a public hearing on 17395, but we're going to have one. So just go ahead and add that in there, and since we're already modifying that, we'll be able to add it into the public hearing as well. Any other comments?
Yes, I have a comment. I am not able to do that because I do not have a
editable.
Yeah, I don't have,
Modified.
I assume it's in Word. I don't have a Word version of that table, which was why I sent you an edited PDF of the language. And so,
I think Angie has one, I believe, that is able to be modified. I know that Heather was working on one, but if we're going to utilize that one, I want to
I'll
make
try.
sure.
If not, I can do a character recognition program and generate words from
okay,
the table all the time.
I tried to get a good whatever, and
Okay.
it was,
Take it.
it was not a good whatever, without a lot of side-by-side comparison to be assured that it was right. So
I
that's why.
I tried also, so it was very hard with that.
I didn't go down
I
that.
think we'll figure it out though, so we'll go ahead and we'll try to produce you an editable, modifiable use table, and we'll go from there. But if you could have that modified and available for that meeting as well.
Okay,
That's actually 17395 will have to go through a public hearing, and also if we're gonna amend 3.4, it would have to also go through public hearings. Some separate way.
so does an amendment to fix an error have to go through a public hearing?
Yes, ma'am. Any text language or any amendments proposed in chapter 17 require to have a public hearing.
Okay, and I would have thought we already had a public hearing on the use table in 17395 because it was part of what we were considering as the vape ordinance. So do we have to have a separate hearing on adding some tweaking language?
I would have to go back, the language stated chapter 17, absolutely, but I would have to go back and see if we actually discussed any chapter, 17395 into that. Because I think at some point I had mentioned that we have to update the use chart to be able to allow it to begin with. So we weren't originally doing that when we started to amend the original vape shop. So I'd have to look back in the notes and stuff and look at other documents and
Okay.
minutes before I can answer that. But I believe so that we would have to have a public hearing.
Okay.
All right, any other comments or anything on that? All right, we'll move on to E, which is chapter 17, ordinance language 17806, non-conforming uses. I know that was on your last agenda as well. I wasn't able to attend due to vacation. I think there was some information exchange of possibilities of why that was on there. I think I shared in context in the agenda packet of what that general topic was. A few months back, one lot was subdivided to create two oceanfront new construction homes that were non-conforming before. The town allowed them to demolish the one structure, create two new structures, which both now are extended into the shore protection area and then also are non-conforming to our existing ordinances as far as flood protection, which doesn't allow above grade pools, and some other elements around extending the shore, allowing a new construction home to still be non-conforming or be built back in a non-conforming way. I wanted to raise the question. There was a stop work order. There was some complaints from town residents and other entities that created the town to put a stop work order on this particular project. And then after meeting with contractors and everything, they come back and the director had submitted a response to that to town council that stated the properties were all meeting compliance to the ordinances. My first question would be always, why would we allow a new construction building that a man or a human physically destructed to be constructed back in a non-conforming way? And then man-made was a big topic as well, because there's no state definition to man-made. There's no legislative mention of man-made. So I think man-made was the biggest issue of not being very clear to them of what really was man-made. So they particularly stated that since a person or a developer or contractor went out there and demolished the house, they man-made the demolition, and it applied to allow them to build back a non-conforming unit. Pretty much the story. So my question is, why would we ever allow a new construction building to not comply or not conform to our new standards? That's the whole purpose of rebuilding or anything. Even if a named storm come in and demolished us all, they would still probably make them build back to a non-conforming way. They would want to have stilts or flood protection, all those elements in place, so that it is safe for the town as well. So hope you guys review that. Any other comments or anything on it?
Mr. Chair, the specific scenario you're referencing, did that have an impact on the town, potentially have an impact on the town's flood rating?
I mean, it could be, there's several factors in that CRS program. I think they have to check boxes, and one of them is probably building back in a flood preventive measure, I would assume. So I believe so, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think it's a good item to discuss. I remember the situation, and if I were a property owner that had a non-conforming house that I wanted to renovate or rebuild, all I need to do is back a tractor trailer into it and say, oh, man-made construction, I'm just gonna rebuild right where it was. So certainly not, I don't think the intent of anyone. Another example of interpretation, which just had a terrible outcome. But I think we could tighten it down either by using better words, such as accidental man-made, or just natural or man-made. If there's destruction to a certain level, you comply with the current ordinance. And that's kind of standard language for so many other things here in Austria.
Comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I think we need to be, I sit on the CRS panel, and I'm going to tell you, we need to be very careful stating what we think would impact that or not, because there's a whole lot to it. So I think that's not necessarily our expertise, and we should be, with that, we need to be careful what we say on record about that.
So I'll retract it. I mean, it may be a possibility. I don't know. Just to be careful. Other comments? We're right. Well, I guess we will just consider this at a later time. But I will stay close to it because I know council has brought it up in the past. I think there was also a stated, I think a general attorney's opinion on this matter as well that was presented and read out into town council. So definitely anything that isn't clear, or especially some type of definition man-made, which cannot be found anywhere, I don't think should be anywhere in our ordinances. So keep that in mind.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. Is it just a question of coming up with a definition of man-made, or is it working into the ordinance intentional conduct of I don't know, knocking down a structure?
I mean, it's all subjective. In my opinion, I don't think 17806 should even be there. I mean, I don't think if anything is destroyed beyond repair, that it should be able to be rebuilt in a non-conforming way, regardless of what created the demolishment.
So are what you suggesting is that ordinance be completely repealed?
In my opinion, I mean, the direction I would take, I would look to either create a definition or remove man-made from the ordinance in general. I would have to do more research and stuff into why we would allow that non-conformity to be rebuilt back to begin with. But I did a lot of research, a lot of in-depth research around those two properties, and I can tell you that in my review and in my opinion, we may be not complying to some of the chapters, but also utilizing 17.806 is what I would say a loophole if you're defining man-made as any destruction. So that's the route the town went with it, stating that man-made was not defined. We couldn't find a definition for it, and that created it to be compliant with the other ordinances. All right, any other comments? All right, we'll move on to F, Planning Commission, June workshop, logistics. As I mentioned earlier, looking to probably have one on the third Thursday. Angie, do you know if you're available? I know you're super busy and taking care of a lot, and I want to continue having the commission work through their issues as well, but I also don't want to create a burden to you either.
As long as it's not Friday. Friday's my day of rest.
Yes, ma'am. It's a Thursday, I believe. So I would say, let's plan for that Thursday. If anybody's opposed to that, you're free to discuss that or pass me a note. But
6 p.m.
yes, sir.
That's the 19th.
Okay, June the 19th,
Fine with me.
6 p.m. Well, of course, if we're going by priorities, we can either design overlay or tree preservation ordinance would be a good option if we feel like we have enough time to review that original document and start some conversation. Or we can have the tree preservation in the next meeting and go ahead and try to get a wrap or a good start on the design overlay for a draft.
Call it a special meeting, we could finish up the paperwork.
And I definitely want to do that if we're in a place to do so, yes, ma'am. We're pretty good agreements on June 19th at 6 p.m., so we'll get that scheduled. Any other comments? All right, moving on. Number 10 is public comments. Do we have any public comments? Having no public comments, we'll move on to commission comments. Any commission comments? All right, no commission comments. We do not currently have an executive session, so we'll move on to a motion of adjournment. All right, got a motion for adjournment from Mary Ellen and second from Melody. All right, any discussion on that? Everyone in agreement, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Meeting adjourned.